Now when you install concrete5, you have a couple different options. Right now we have an empty site option, which will just give us a blank site with no sample content. And then we have this other starting point here, which is highlighted in green. This is sample content with blog. This will give us some sample content to work with. So if you want to set up concrete5 and have a bunch of pages already created, some content and blocks and stuff like that, just to show you how a site might be set up, this is a good idea. So we'll use this one, the sample content with blog, to get started today. And while we're doing this, I'll take a look at this outline real quick. I downloaded this today. Theme Development Training Outline from concrete5.org. I'll post that link to the page again in the chat in case you are just arriving. But this is the outline we're going to be looking at today and following. Okay. Looks like concrete5 is still installing. This takes a little bit longer on a slower desktop machine like the one I'm working with here. It might go a little bit faster on your actual your actual hosting environment or a staging server or development server. But in just a moment here we'll be all set and done. Okay, there we go. So when I click continue to our site, we're going to see the sample content that concrete5 created. We get this welcome screen here talking about what you can do with concrete5. But I'll close that for now and we'll take a look at what we have to start off with. So right now we're logged into our site. This is the site that concrete5 just set up for us with that sample content. And as you can see, it looks like a typical website, kind of like maybe like a blog would look. We have this theme that's applied by default with this blue background and some white content well area here in the middle. I have a navigation menu up here that I can mouse over, and it looks like there's some highlight styles applied as I hover over each page. And scrolling down, I can see I've got a footer down here as well. And that all looks like a pretty typical website. Now, of course, with concrete5, we have the advantage of our in-context editing, and that lets you change the content on any page as you visit it. So since I'm already logged into my site as an administrator, I have this concrete5 toolbar up here at the very top of my screen. You probably noticed that right away. As you can see, there's a number of buttons up here. If I wanted to put the page in edit mode, all I have to do is mouse over this edit pencil icon here and click edit this page, and this will let us enter that in context editing. When I click edit this page, the page reloads, my pencil icon turns green, as you can see there, and now I have the various editable things on my page highlighted in red. So each of these boxes here that are highlighted represents a block in concrete5. So a block is a piece of content of a certain type. If I click this block right here, I get a menu. I can do a number of different things with this block that's already on my page here. I'm going to choose edit just to show you some real basics about how this works. When I click edit, I get an overlay window here that actually lets me edit this text. So you can see this is all the content from our page. If you want to, for instance, change what content's in here, if I want to maybe paste in a couple new lines, I can do that. Click save, and the content shows up on my page here. When I'm all ready and I want to make this change to my website live, all I need to do is go back up to the editing icon here, the button here, mouse over, and then click publish my edits. I can also preview my edits if I want to see how this page would look without actually publishing it. If I want to go ahead and publish it right away, I can just go ahead and click publish my edits. This will make the change live on my website. So now anyone who's looking at this page, any visitor to my site, would be able to see these two new pieces of text that we entered here. So just to sort of reinforce what I was talking about, I'm going to put the page in edit mode again. Go back to the editing pencil and click edit this page. If I scroll down here, let's take a look at some other stuff that we can see when the page is in edit mode. If I go down here below our content block that we are working with, there's also this other box here that says add to main. This represents an area in concrete5. An area is a sort of a container for the content blocks that you want to insert. So this is something we defined in our themes page types, and this is a place for us to put blocks of various types, like our content block here. So if I wanted to put an image block in this area, all I'd have to do is click that box, Add to Main, and then choose Add Block from the menu. And then I have various blocks available to me by default. These are all the blocks that ship with concrete5. And as you can see, they represent different pieces of content. We have a YouTube video block. We have a page list block that grabs a list of pages from your site and creates a sort of a navigation menu. We have various different types of blocks you can add to your site. I'll add an image block here just to show you how this works. I can go and select an image that's managed by the concrete5 file manager. And when I do that, I'll just select this little thumbnail here. I can place this on the page, and as you can see, I have a second block of a different type showing up below the first one we had. So as you can see, we have different blocks that you can add to your area. Each one of these is a block here, and this is our area down below. So blocks are going to be placed on the page by you, but as a theme developer, you're going to want to create a page that works in concrete5 and includes these editable areas too. So I can see I have another one up here called Sidebar. So these represent all the different places on your page design that you want people to put blocks in and actually add content to the page. So this really comes in handy when you want to make something that can be updated by your client or by your customer or so on. Okay. So I'll go ahead and publish my edits here. I think before I get started on that outline, we haven't really gotten to anything on there yet. I just wanted to give a brief demo of how concrete5 works in a very basic sense. Before I get started on the outline, I wanted to go and turn off our caches for our site. So this is something we do in the dashboard. The dashboard, if you're coming to concrete5 from a different CMS like WordPress or Joomla or something like that, those all have sort of a control panel dashboard interfaces as well that let you do administrative tasks. Concrete5 has one as well. We call it the dashboard, and you can get to it by clicking on this button right here. So when I mouse over, I get some quick links to various pages around my dashboard, and if I click the dashboard button itself, I can go straight into the dashboard and actually take a look at all the different pages I have that let me administer parts of my site. So we'll be coming back here in a little while to take a look at some of the stuff under pages and themes. But for right now, I'm interested in taking a look at the cache settings. As I mentioned, I'm going to go into System and Settings here, and then go over to cache and speed settings and just turn off a couple of these caches that concrete5 has turned on by default in a brand new site. So I'll turn off the block cache, and I'll turn off the overrides cache too. The cache in concrete5 sort of preloads a bunch of resources that are usually accessed in a more dynamic way, and makes them quicker and easier for the site to access. If it doesn't need to reload it and make a bunch of database calls, it'll cache a component of concrete5 and put it aside. So while we're developing for our site, we want to keep the block cache and the overrides cache turned off. Of course, if you've got full page caching on, you want to turn that off too. This is just for development. If you want to actually launch your site and go live with it, you might take a look at turning these caches back on and see how they improve performance of your site. So just to keep these turned off while I'm developing here, probably a good idea. I'll go click Save here to get those cache settings saved, and now I think we're just about ready to roll on what themes are in concrete5 and how they work. So I'll click that Return to Website button to go back to the home page of my site. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of different pages on this site. We have this one we're at right now. It's called Home. We have About. We have Blog. We have Search. And clicking each one of these on the navigation menu here lets us visit each of these different pages. These are all pages on your website. Okay. So another interesting thing to know about before we dive in, if you go to the dashboard, I'll just click through again, we have a sitemap that illustrates the whole hierarchy of your site. If I go to the sitemap here in the dashboard, this is full sitemap, we can see these are the actual pages that exist on our site. On that top level, we have a home page, it's always the very top level of your site, and then we have About, Blog, and Search, those pages right below it. If I expand these nodes here on the sitemap, you can see we have pages that are nested beneath. So under the About page, we have a couple of pages that talk about what our website is, contact us in guest book. Then under blog, we have a couple of blog entries here too. So as you can see, these are all pages on your site, and they're sort of organized in this tree structure that we call the sitemap. So that's probably something else we'll need to know when we start, looking at pages and developing page types for our site and all that. But now, I think now that we have these sort of fundamentals under our belt, I think I'll get started on the actual theme content of this training, which is probably something you're looking forward to. So I'll go and hit return to website again, and we'll go back to the home page, and let's start talking about themes in concrete5. I'm going to move this theme training outline over to my other screen and get rolling on this. Okay, so number one on our outline, we have theme overview and features. So in concrete5, I mentioned this default theme is turned on with the sample blog starting point. As you can see, it has this blue sort of background and a white area in the middle for our content blocks to actually hang around in. And this is applied to every page on our site. As I mentioned, when I click around these other pages we have, they all have the same look and feel. Well, one cool thing about concrete5 is you don't necessarily have to have that theme on every single page. If I wanted to change the theme on the About page, I could change it just for that one page and keep the other pages using this default theme that I have turned on. So what I could do is go up to the Edit pencil and now click this design link right here under this menu that drops down. When I click this, I get a couple of different options. The first option is page type, and the second option is theme. We'll come back to page types in a minute, but I wanted to show you how you can change that theme for just this individual page. So if I wanted to switch out how this theme actually, or how this page actually looks and what themes applied to it, all I'd have to do is select a different theme here. Now this is Greek yogurt, the one we have activated right now, and it's highlighted in blue here to indicate that it's activated. If I choose something like green salad, for instance, and click save, the page will reload in that new theme. So you can see that we have the same content that we had before, but now it's being rendered differently through a different theme. And if I go ahead and publish my edits, since this is a change to the versions in concrete5, it's a new version of this page. Now this page is actually on our site. So if I go back to our home page, you can see that it still has this theme, this default Greek yogurt theme applied. That's the name of the theme we have set up by default here. But if I go to the About page, you can see that it has that green salad theme, that new theme applied to just that page. So you're not locked into only using one theme on your site in concrete5. You can have multiple themes applied to different pages if you like. Now if you want to change the theme for the entire site, you'd have to go to the dashboard, and we'll click straight through. Just click that button there, and now that we're in the dashboard, we can go to pages and themes. And I'll click this page underneath this this sort of area here, and this is the themes page. I'll click this, and when I visit this page, we get a list of all the different themes which are installed on this site. So as you can see, we have a bunch of different themes that are already available to us that ship with concrete5. We have that Greek yogurt theme that we saw earlier. This is the one that's currently activated on the site. So this is the one that was applied to all pages. As you can see, this one's kind of highlighted here in this light blue color, and the button's sort of disabled here. So this means that this theme is activated. This is the current theme that's turned on for the whole site. If I wanted to change the theme on all the pages in my site at once, I could activate a new theme. So if I click activate on any of these other themes in here, it's going to apply that theme to every single page in the site. Now I can, before I actually go and activate one of these, I can click preview to see how my site might look in this theme. So if I click preview on this plain yogurt theme, this is a different yogurt theme in concrete5. Click preview, we get this this overlay opening up here over the dashboard that shows us what our home page will look like with this theme applied. So you might recognize this content from the home page. We have all that sample text here that got installed with concrete5, and then we have those new blocks that we added as well. Now I can do that for any of these themes here. If I want to see how our theme or our site looks in dark chocolate, I can click preview here, and I get our home page in that theme. So you can sort of figure out what your site might look like with a theme applied without actually applying it. So that's pretty cool, pretty handy if you're not sure if you forget what one of these themes actually looks like and you want to see how it's going to react to the content on your home page. Since we already have this Greek yogurt theme activated, I'm going to go ahead and activate plain yogurt up here just to show you how that works and what that does. If I hit activate here, we get a confirmation dialog saying apply this theme to every page on your site. And if I click OK, concrete5 will do that. So now plain yogurt's activated. It's highlighted in blue here. And if I go back to my home page, hit this return to website button, you can see that our site is now being rendered through plain yogurt instead of that Greek yogurt theme. So we don't have those blue sides anymore. We don't have the same stuff showing up here because it's actually referencing some different areas up here in our header that in the other theme that aren't present in this theme. We'll get to that soon enough. But as you can see, we've applied this theme to every page in our site. Now it looks like our navigation menu is probably in an area that doesn't exist in this theme. Isn't being referenced, as I mentioned, but we can still get to our pages by going to /about, for instance. We can see this is this theme was applied to the about page as well. Now this is kind of interesting because this is the page that we applied that one-off individual theme green salad to a few minutes ago. As you can see, activating the theme on our site wiped out the custom theme that we had applied to this page. So keep that in mind. If you're going to activate a theme, it's going to turn that theme on for every single page in the site, regardless of whether or not they have a custom one-off theme set on the particular page. Okay, so I mentioned that our navigation menu sort of went away here because this plain yogurt theme doesn't have a particular area referenced in it. So let's go ahead and turn that Greek yogurt theme back on, just for the sake of getting our site a little more functional. We could always add a block, of course, if we wanted to put the page in edit mode and insert a new block, like for instance perhaps an auto nav. This will pull pages from our sitemap and make a link to each of them. So if we wanted to get navigation back, we could simply do that. But I think for now, I think I want to get rid of this block and just go back to our old theme. So I'm going to go back into the dashboard, go to themes, and then activate Greek yogurt. Now this should apply Greek yogurt to every page in my site and get it looking the way it did when we first arrived. So if I go back to home, it looks like our navigation menu is back in the right place. Okay, so in addition to actually applying themes to pages or applying to the entire site with the activate option, you can also have some flexibility in terms of how your content actually looks within each theme. So right now, what I'm looking at right here is our home page. I think I'll go check out the about page instead, because this is sort of a page beneath the home page. I like to use this one for examples, but these lessons apply to pretty much any page in concrete5. When I go and edit this page, if I mouse over the edit icon here, let's go back to that design link and take a look at that first option we get. So we have this menu here for choose a page type. What this does is it determines the page type that the page is rendered through. So these are different, you can think of them as templates in your theme that control how content is laid out on your page. So depending on how you code these page types, the div structure inside there and the actual HTML and PHP that you have going on inside your page types, your content can be displayed in different ways. So for instance, right now we have left sidebar activated on this page. If I choose right sidebar and apply that, the page will reload, and as you can see, our two different areas, main and sidebar, got flipped around. So the right sidebar page type is actually controlling where these areas are rendered and the order they're showing up on our page. So we can use these page types to control how our content is rendered on the page. And if you want to take your content and make it displayed differently, you might consider making a new page type for your site. So we'll talk a little more about that in a moment. We'll definitely make some page types today. Okay. Now, we have taken a look at item C under number 1 on our training outline. Here's our training outline. We're going to take a look at list install themes. We already saw some of this on the on the themes page in the dashboard. I'll click through here, go to themes. So now we have, this list of all the themes that are available to us, and we can see the Greek yogurt's activated. Now we took a look at the preview option before. We took a look at activate. Let's take a look at inspect. Now inspect gives us this screen here which lists some files in the theme. And what these essentially are all the page types that render your content in concrete5. So we can see we have one here called blog entry. This is a template for the blog entry page type. We have default.php. This is a fallback template that renders when concrete5 can't find a page type with a particular handle inside your theme. So this is always required, this default.php. We have full.php. This matches up with the full page type over here. You can see the description over here on the right hand side. And then we have left sidebar, and we have view.php. View.php is another special file in your theme. It renders single page content in concrete5. Now we won't get too far into single pages in concrete5 in this training, but essentially single pages let you run custom code. Usually it'd be PHP and JavaScript and HTML that takes advantage of the concrete5 environment. So if you wanted to do a one-off page in concrete5 and do something that interacts with concrete5, for instance, make a custom form that does something special and saves data to the database, you might make a custom single page and controller file to go along with that. But since that stuff will have to be displayed in the front end of your site somewhere, we need this special view.php file to wrap that code in your theme. So this is an important one too. You have to have view.php in there. There's a special line of code inside that file we'll take a look at shortly, but that file always needs to be present in your theme, view.php. If you don't have it, concrete5 will complain. It'll say, hey, you have to have view.php in your theme in order to actually install. Okay, so the inspect option here on the themes page lets you take a look at all the different page types and the files they correspond to in your theme folder. We'll take a look at the actual files in just a moment. If I go back to the themes page, the last thing I wanted to mention here is this customize button. This is pretty cool and something you'll want to take advantage of if you're creating themes to resell in a marketplace like ThemeForest or the concrete5 marketplace or anywhere else. This customize button lets you take the customizable colors that you've set up in your theme's style sheets with some special code wrapped around them. We might talk about that a little bit later. And this lets you actually change the properties of your page from the dashboard here. So as you can see, we have some color pickers here that let you adjust color on various elements that we've defined inside our theme style sheets. And down below here we have this preview of what our site will look like right now with the current set of colors applied to it. So if I wanted to change the background of this header, for instance, I could go and click this color picker here, and maybe I'll make a nice ugly green color. I'll select that. The page reloads and we can see what our site would look like with that special custom color applied. So we've defined this style in one of our theme style sheets, and once we've defined it correctly as a customizable style, concrete5 will let us adjust the color that it uses for this header background, for instance, in this particular example. If we want to apply this to our site, all we'd have to do is hit save, and now our site has that ugly green header at the very top. So you can customize various elements in your theme styles and actually change them and allow end users to modify how your theme looks and behaves. Now I'll go back to the dashboard and take a look at themes again. Go right back to that place where you're at, this customize button here for this theme. And let's say I want to turn off that ugly green header. I could just go ahead and press this reset button, and this will clear out any customizations we've made here with colors that we've defined or any other properties. So this will get us back to our site looking like the way it did by default, the default styles for our site. Now there's also the option here and this little gear icon that allows us to paste in some CSS that we want to actually have available to us on the page. So this might be a place for us to add custom styles if we want. As you can see right here, we're defining a font right here, and this actually goes and adjusts the font on our page. And I believe it corresponds to these headers and the paragraph text and all the other stuff you see here. That's the Merriweather font. So you can do a little more complicated stuff than just select colors, but colors are, very common to have in your customizable themes here. If I go back to our themes page, we could take a look at plain yogurt here and take a look customize for this. You can see that we have some other styles in here for this particular theme. These are all specific to themes that we have installed. And if I want to have this custom font selector here, this is also coded in, so you can take a look at the plain yogurt styles in that theme, the style sheets for that theme, and take a look at how this is done. Okay, so looking at our outline here, we've talked about switching page types, taking a look at the installed themes with inspect to take a look at the page types that we have installed on our site. We have taken a look at preview, which allows you to see how your home page looks with a particular theme applied to it. Then we've activated themes, which means apply them to the entire site. And we've also taken a look at the customize options for changing how your theme looks and adding custom CSS from the dashboard. Last thing I wanted to do here before I take some questions, if we have any, I'm going to take a look at how you might list all the different installed page types on your site. So I'm going to go to the dashboard again and click straight through. And under the themes page that we've been visiting and working with, there's a page called page types. So I'll click that, and this will give us a list of all the different page types that are currently applied in our site, or rather currently installed. Now, I mentioned that page types control how your content blocks are actually displayed in the page. They're sort of like the template or form factor for your theme. You can have multiple page types inside your theme. But ultimately, all these are sort of registered on your site in a more global fashion. So this means that on this page types page, you're going to see an entry here for every single one of the page types that are installed, that have been installed and are used by every theme on your site. So right now it looks like we have 4 of them that are currently registered. We have blog entry, we have full, we have left sidebar, and right sidebar. Each of these has a corresponding handle here, and this actually matches up with the file name in each of our themes. So each of our themes will have a blog entry page type. Our themes might have a full page type, a left sidebar page type, and a right sidebar page type. We're going to ask our themes for those files. If, since these are sort of registered globally, it's certainly possible that one of our themes might not have one of these page types included in its files. And if that's the case, if concrete5 asks for right sidebar, it'll use, it'll try to find that file inside the themes folder, and if it can't find it, it will render the page through default.php instead. So just to start thinking about how those fallbacks work, how default.php will work to render your content in case concrete5 can't find a page type with a certain handle inside a theme. So I guess a good takeaway from this is, your page types are all registered on your site. Everything that's currently registered will show up here in your page types page. And keep in mind that not all themes are going to include all page types. Sometimes your theme, you might download a theme from our marketplace or get one from ThemeForest or a custom theme. You might not have a page type with a certain handle. And if concrete5 can't find that page type, it'll render it through default.php instead when you visit the page. Okay, so I'm going to take a look and see if we have any questions. Looks like so far I've got nothing that's, so there's a couple that just say hi and asking about sound settings. I think everyone can hear me correctly if I'm not mistaken. Looks like I'm broadcasting audio. So I think we're okay for now. All right. So I'm going to move along and talk about the next parts of concrete5 and then the actual anatomy of your theme files. So it looks like we're about a half hour in so far. We're moving along just fine. Okay, so we're going to do number 2 now on the outline. This is theme anatomy. So I have this concrete5 website I've been working with this morning, and where I actually installed this to is a folder on my desktop here This is public HTML. So this is the root of my my local web server. So this is where your concrete5 files will actually go. These are all the folders and files that typically get installed with concrete5. If you go and download concrete5 from our site, or get it off GitHub or SourceForge, or whoever you're getting concrete5 from, if you have maybe your web host install it for you, you're going to have all these files here in your public HTML directory, I guess. So taking a look at this, you might wonder, okay, where are themes located? So there's a few places where your themes might live, depending on where you got them from. So taking a look at these themes that got installed with concrete5, they're going to be in the concrete5 core directory. So in a concrete5 site, this folder here called concrete is the one that contains all the code that actually is responsible for running your site. That's all the source code from concrete5 is going to end up in this folder for the most part. So all the internal stuff that makes concrete5 work is going to be inside here, and that's where these default themes will live here too. So under concrete, you'll notice a lot of these folder names are familiar to you from the top level of your website. But take a look at this themes directory. When we expand that, we'll see a number of themes down here which will be real familiar to you at this point. We have this Greek yogurt theme that we've been working with this morning. We have green salad, we have dark chocolate, and we have default. Now default is actually that plain yogurt theme, that very white and plain theme that we saw. And that's sort of a fallback theme for concrete5 to use if you choose to have no other themes installed. You have to have some theme in order to render a page, so that's why that's there. It's called default because it's the fallback theme for concrete5. If nothing else is present, this theme will help you render a page. As I mentioned, these other themes in here should be pretty familiar to you. Here's Greek yogurt, here's green salad, here's dark chocolate. Now before I take a look at the files inside here, I wanted to mention that there's two other folders in here that you probably don't have to worry about. There's one called core and one called dashboard. These do some internal concrete5 stuff, core and dashboard, and typically when you're developing a theme you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. These are not themes that are applied to any of the front end pages of your site that people actually visit. So don't worry about core or dashboard in this theme folder. But if you want to take a look at how our core themes work, you can certainly take a look at one of these folders and get a feel for how themes are built. So let's take a look at Greek yogurt. That's the theme we have applied right here. This is Greek yogurt. It's activated on our site right now. And if we go and expand this folder, you can see we have a number of files inside. So we have blog entry, we have default, we have full, we have left sidebar. These should be familiar to you because these are our page types. So these are all represented as PHP files inside your theme directory. Now, in addition to these, these page types like blog entry and full, these are like regular page types you might think of them as. We also have the default or fallback page types. We have default.php and view.php. Those are required by your theme in concrete5. So these are in here as well. All themes will have these two at bare minimum. You can have as many page types in your theme as you want, but you want to always have default and view. Those are your bare minimum page types to actually get your theme working on your site. Now, in addition to those PHP files, which represent our page types, we also have a few other files. We have description.txt. This represents how your theme is actually listed in the dashboard. So if I go to the dashboard, click on that themes page, you can see that we have a name and description here on our list of themes, and description.txt just defines that in a real simple way. So if I open this up, you can see what we have here. We have Greek yogurt, an elegant theme for concrete5, and that corresponds directly with what you see right here. So that's our description.txt for our theme. Pretty simple stuff. It's just two lines. First line is the name, second line is the description of the theme. Good idea to keep these relatively short. Obviously you don't have a whole lot of room to work with here in the dashboard, but you'll figure that out. Okay, so back to our folder here, taking a look through at the other stuff in here. We also see some style sheets. We have main.css and typography.css. In this particular theme, we have main.css is just mostly the primary style sheet for the Greek yogurt theme. It has most of the styles that control our div structure and other properties of the page. And then we have typography.css, which is primarily concerned with with font faces and font styles, text styles, I guess, for our theme. So we'll take a look a little more in depth at typography at CSS later because it has some customizable stuff that's kind of cool that we want to use. Additionally, inside our Greek yogurt theme here, we also have a thumbnail. So if I take a look at this real quick, you can see this is just a small picture that shows you what the theme will look like when it's applied on the page. And you'll recognize this from our themes page right here. So this is the actual thumbnail that's used on the themes page for Concrete5. Now this theme thumbnail, it always should be called thumbnail.png. Okay, it's a ping graphics file, and it has to be that format. It can't be thumbnail.gif or GIF, or it can't be thumbnail.jpg. It has to be thumbnail.ping. And we have specific size dimensions we want to see here too as well. This should be 120 pixels by 90 pixels. We take a look at this in our Mac info view here. We can see the dimensions are 120 by 90. So that's what you want to use for your thumbnail.png, 120 by 90, pardon me. And it should represent what the page actually looks like, the theme actually looks like when it's applied to a page. Because when you're looking around here, you want to see this at a glance. What kind of theme am I going to be activating here? Of course, you can always preview, but make this actually look like your theme. Sometimes I see theme developers put their company's logo or something like that in here, and that's not very helpful. You want to actually give a preview of what the theme looks like on a page. Okay, so looking in here, we also have this this folder that contains some other style sheets. Looks like these are all sort of more static assets that aren't really especially custom or anything. We have a reset for styles and text, and we have the 960 grid system located in here. So you don't have to keep all your style sheets in the root of your site. You can put them somewhere else if you like. Putting them in a CSS folder will probably help you, organize some of this stuff that you're not likely going to need to modify or anything like that, or look at really too much. Okay, so then we have a couple more files in here. We're almost through this brief tour of theme anatomy. We have an images folder, which actually in this case just has the static images that our theme uses. In this case, it's just the social icons that our blog template happens to put at the bottom of blog posts, so you can share this, share the blog post or whatever. So you can keep your image, your theme assets in a folder like that if you want. Just a means of organizing your theme. And then we have an elements folder. The elements folder is a little more interesting than that. And this actually we'll get to in the the second part of our actual building hour, where we actually build the theme in Concrete5. And these are actually the sort of the reusable elements, we call them, that define the code in your header and footer of your theme. So once we have a working page type applied to our site in our theme, we'll break up the header and footer and reuse them on different page types in our theme, and then and reference these with includes on our page types. So I'll show you how to do that in a little while. But a typical way to organize your theme folder is to have this folder called elements inside, and have your header, footer, and everything else you want to be reusable on multiple pages, or rather different page types, be located inside here. Now we also have this blog header.php file in here, and this looks like we're calling a different special header file, different header include, you can think of this as, for our blog entry page. So if you want to have some page types called a different header, you could certainly call a different file in here with an include. But we'll get to that towards the end of our theming demonstration today. Okay, so that's a brief look at how this Greek yogurt theme looks. I guess we talked about a bunch of this stuff in here. We kind of got through a lot of that real quick. Now I wanted to mention a couple other items here under locations. Just thinking about where your theme should be and where you'd want to start working on a customizable theme or a theme that you've downloaded from concrete5.org. Because those aren't going to be in the core directory. So here's our concrete folder. We're working in here. This is that themes directory that has Greek yogurt in it. If I was making a custom theme, I wouldn't do it inside this concrete folder. Now let me explain why. In concrete5, we try to make everything as replaceable as possible in this core directory, and that comes into play when you're trying to when you're upgrading a site to a new version of concrete5. What will happen is essentially this concrete folder will get ignored. This is now the old version of the core, and your new core, your new concrete5 core, the upgraded version, will end up in your updates folder. So if you change code inside this concrete folder, you might lose those changes, or they'll no longer be active once you upgrade the site. So don't make your theme inside the concrete folder. Don't modify the themes inside the concrete folder. If you want to do that, you're going to want to copy those themes out of the concrete themes directory here. Let's grab Greek yogurt. I'm just going to copy this whole folder. So I'm going to copy the Greek yogurt folder. I'm gonna paste it into a different spot. Now you might have noticed there's a directory down here called themes as well, and there's nothing in it. This is an override directory in concrete5. So if you're doing a custom override of any of the stuff inside the core, we have this really cool system of overrides that lets you grab a file from the concrete5 core, like a controller or a helper or any of these empty folders here. You can grab a file from the concrete5 core, change it to your liking, and actually place it in one of these overrides folders, and concrete5 will read that file before it loads the default version from the core. And themes work in kind of the same way. So if you wanted to make a custom theme based off of Greek yogurt, for instance, we copied that folder out of the core, and we're going to place it in this themes directory instead. So here's our empty themes override directory. We call all these empty folders up here in the root of our site override directories. So I'll paste this in, and now if I want to make this its own custom theme, sort of fork this theme and make it its own deal, I would give this a new name. And it's a good idea to keep in mind the concrete5 handle naming convention here. So if I wanted to make this name this Greek yogurt 2, to make my own custom version of this, I would keep the folder name all lowercase and use underscores instead of spaces. So no caps and no spaces in these theme handles, okay? So our new theme is called Greek yogurt 2, and just to keep things making sense, we're probably going to want to update this description.txt, okay? So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to change this description to Greek yogurt 2, and I'll give it a new description too. Alright, so now we've updated description.txt. So we have a new theme folder. We've copied Greek yogurt out of the core folder and into the themes override directory in the root of our site, pasted that in there, then we updated the folder name, gave it a new theme handle, so concrete5 knows this is its own theme. It's not a duplicate of the original Greek yogurt one in the themes folder in the core. And then we gave it a new name and description in description.txt. So we have Greek yogurt 2, a modified theme for concrete5. So now that we have this theme copied and pasted into our overrides directory, let's go take a look at what we have available in our dashboard. And this will actually cover how we actually install a new theme in concrete5 from this overrides directory. So if I go, I'm on my themes page right here, I'll just refresh this page. And now, if I scroll down a little bit here, we'll see that we have a new theme available to install. You can see it has that new description text, Greek yogurt 2, a modified theme for concrete5. So that's pretty cool. All you need to do is get a working theme folder inside your overrides directory here. And assuming you got everything correct in a way that concrete5 can recognize, you're going to have your theme show up here in the dashboard under available to install. So once I click this, concrete5 will install the theme. Now it runs through and takes a look at all the different page types that are used by this theme, and it makes sure that they're all registered here already on your site. Now of course, this is just a copy of the original Greek yogurt, so concrete5 is not going to find any new page types. But let's say I did something here, just to give you an example. Let's say I took like this full page type and I'll duplicate it. I'll call this custom.php. I'll rename it. Rename my copy, rather. Now we'll go and inspect this theme again. Now we see custom.php shows up in the list. So concrete5 looked at that folder and saw that we have a new page type with the handle custom. And it recognizes that this is a new page type that's not used by any other theme in our site. So in order to use this page type and actually apply it to any of our pages, we're going to go ahead and create the page type here and actually register it for use on our site. So this checkbox is checked. I hit OK. And now custom.php is registered and available to us to apply to pages on our site. Now, of course, it's not going to look any different from the full.php because all we did was duplicate that file. But that's essentially how you install a new page type from your custom theme. Now, you might be curious why I bothered updating this description.txt. Well, as you can see, when I change this to Greek Yogurt 2, a modified theme for concrete5, it makes sense because eventually, if you copy a theme like that, paste it into the overrides directory, and then go and install it, even if you change the handle of the theme folder here to Greek Yogurt 2, concrete5 is still going to read that description.txt and display it here. So you probably don't want to have two themes with the identical description text on them. You probably want to keep these not identical, rather different for each one of these, so that folks know which theme they're actually activating on their site. Right now, if we had two Greek yogurts here, it would be hard to tell without looking at code which one is what. So keep your description.txt updated if you're going to copy a theme out of the core. It's sort of an important thing to think about, but an easy thing to overlook. Okay, let's take a look at our outline here. Talked about locations. We talked about a few things in here real briefly. I think I might pause for questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post them to the questions part of the webinar, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm going to mute my microphone here for just a moment and take a sip of water, and then I'll take a look at the questions that you've posted. So 1 second. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions so far, so I think we'll just move along here and talk about some more stuff. Okay, let's go take a look at some of the code in that theme that we copied. So I'm going to go look at the code in Greek Yogurt 2, that theme that I just copied into our themes override directory. Let's actually look at the code inside these PHP files and the code inside some of the other stuff that's in here in our theme here. First, we'll take a look at one of our page types. So let's take a look at the page type left sidebar.php. So I'll go back to my website, and just for this example, I'll go to the About page and change its page type with the design link there to use left sidebar. So we actually have this page type rendering our page on our site. So you can see we have these editable areas. We have blocks. We have an area called main here, area called sidebar. Let's take a look at the actual code in our page type and check that out. So we'll open this up. There's not a whole lot of code inside this page type. We have a few specialized things that we're doing in concrete5, but for the most part, it's just some HTML divs. You can see here we have divs with styles applied to them. Fairly basic stuff. In here, you can see where we're actually creating our editable areas. So right here, we have this tag, this PHP tag that defines our sidebar area. And then we have a PHP tag that defines our main area. So those correspond to how our page actually looks. We have sidebar, we have main, both areas in concrete5. Of course, these are blocks in concrete5, so those don't get added to the page types. Those get added through the CMS, through the in-context editing, of course. But as you can see, that's all we're doing. We just have a few divs in here to actually create the structure of the middle part of our page here. We have a couple of editable areas that we've defined. And then we have, you might have noticed, a couple of includes in concrete5. So So we're calling this include method in the view context and pulling up footer.php and header.php from that elements folder. So this is how we're actually loading in stuff to render the rest of this page. So when concrete5 gets the request to load this page, it's going to pull up this page type, and in the blink of an eye, it's going to render the content from these areas and pull in these two includes to actually render the page. So that's what the code inside your page types are doing. If we look at, just real briefly look at the elements folder and take a look at header, you can see that inside here, this just starts off pretty much just like a regular HTML page would, just like a static HTML page. We have some special code here we'll get to in a moment to pull in stuff we need for the header, and a little bit of special PHP code here to get stuff for the style sheets we need. But then below that, all we have are some divs and some editable areas that we've created here. In this case, these are two global areas, which are a little bit different in concrete5. We'll talk about that. And that's all we have here in our header include. So not a whole lot of code in here. It's all pretty straightforward, but it's just essentially HTML with some specialized PHP tags inserted in. Now, for getting a theme up and running, you really don't need to know too much about PHP. You can get most of this code from tutorials, of course, or you can get some of this code from by looking at the sample themes that are included in concrete5, the core themes rather, or you can of course take a look at the training resource documents that I'll be passing along to each of you after today's training. So yeah, we'll talk about all these tags in depth when we actually build our theme in a moment here. Cool, so that's what our includes look like. That's what our theme elements, the reusable parts of our theme. Of course, since we're loading this header code at the beginning of every single page, it makes sense to recycle it into a reusable theme element like this to actually use it for each of our page types as we render the pages. You could certainly make, repeat this code at the top of every page type if you wanted to. You wouldn't have to use an element if you didn't want to, but this seems to be a good way to avoid having redundant code and not having stuff exist in more than one spot in case you wanted to change everything. It makes sense to use reusable elements on your site. So I'll close these three files rather, and we'll talk about the last things I wanted to mention inside here. Now we're looking at general theme style sheets. I mentioned that this Greek yogurt theme that we've copied now, Greek yogurt 2, it has this main.css style sheet here. I'll open this up, and this just looks like a regular style sheet. So simple stuff in here, the usual stuff you'd see in any sort of template or design, just some styles that control various parts of the theme. So nothing especially hard to wrap your head around inside that style sheet. It's a pretty typical style sheet. Typography.css is mostly the same, but as you can see, of course, this is mostly relating to text styles in concrete5 for your for your theme. You're actually rendering text on the page, so maybe the fonts and sizes and colors of your headers and paragraph text and all that stuff will be in here. But in addition, we have these customized tags in here. So this is how we're actually making customizable elements for our theme. So I mentioned that you could change the color of your header, the background color of your header. We set it to that ugly green color, if you recall. This is where we're actually defining that right here, and I'll bump up the text size here too if it's a little bit hard to take a look at. But you'll notice that here's our whole CSS selector for that header div where we're setting the background color on this. Now by default we have this default color of white, but we've wrapped it in these customize underscore header dash background tags. And we've used CSS comments around each of these customized definitions here. So you'll notice the same exact text starts the tag and ends the tag. And so this defines a property, a CSS property that concrete5 is going to be able to override with your customized selections from the dashboard. So this corresponds directly with what we saw when we went to the dashboard. We took a look at themes and hit customize on Greek yogurt. This corresponds directly with our header background right here that actually lets us pick a color here. So pretty cool to take a look at if you want to build some customizable styles into your theme. Take a look at typography.css in your Greek yogurt theme. But maybe we'll build a couple of these into our theme today. They're pretty easy to do. Okay, close that file, and I think we'll move right along here. Talked about elements. Images in JavaScript, as I mentioned, you can store those right in your theme folder. So for instance, we have an images folder here. If we wanted to put a scripts folder in here too, we could certainly do that. We could make one here called, oops, I'm in the wrong part of my site. Make a folder here called JS or something like that and throw some scripts in here. You can also put your files in the root of your site, but it's up to you. You just have to get the references to them correct once you actually code them into your page types and your reusable elements and stuff. All right, cool. So let's actually get down to the meat and potatoes of this training. I'm sure you're waiting to hear all about this. We're actually going to start building a theme from a static HTML and CSS site design. So we're on number 3 here, building a theme from static HTML and CSS. So this should go pretty quickly once we get rolling here. If you have trouble following along, I'll try to make a recording of this training available to you after the fact if you have trouble keeping up here, if you're trying to follow along at home. That should be available to you probably by the end of the week or so. Anyhow, just like to say that as we get started, just in case folks feel like they're falling behind or something as we move along here. So let's go and get ourselves a pre-made free CSS HTML theme. So I'm going to go to freecsstemplates.org. And let's see here. I know I've used a couple of these in trainings in the past, and they work pretty well. These are all templates that you can download for free and turn into a theme for whatever CMS or maybe even a static site. But if I go and take a look at this one here called Doubtless, I'm going to go click this. This is how this theme looks. It looks like it's pretty straightforward. Doesn't have anything too complicated going on, but it looks like there's a header up here with a navigation menu. Then we have some content down here, some various columns, and then we have a footer down here at the very bottom. So this looks like it's got most of what we want to actually take a look at and turn into a concrete5 theme as we do this demo. So let's actually download this and take a look at what it contains. Okay, so I've got this file. Let's close this window here. Before I move along, I'll paste this into the chat just in case anyone wants to take a look at it and download it for themselves. Okay, so we've got this theme, and if I go back to my website, let's go take a look at that actual theme that we downloaded. So I'll go to my downloads folder here. This is the file. This is doubtless.zip, and I'm going to go and minimize some windows here real quick just to give us more space to work with. So this is a zip file with all the files that this theme included. I'll unzip this, take a look in the folder. What we have here is real simple. We have an index.html, just a static HTML document. Then we have a style sheet here called default.css, pretty straightforward. And then we have license, and we have some static images. Looks like in this theme we just have one, which is the background image. Okay, so we're going to actually turn this theme into a concrete5 theme. So I can open this up in a browser. Oops, I guess I have my system set up to actually open this in my text editor. But if I open this theme up in a browser, this is the actual index.html from the theme. You can see that it looks pretty much like it did on the website. So we're going to try to make a concrete5 theme that looks just like this. So let's go get our site back. I'll paste this up here in a different tab just to have a little bit of a reference here for what we're doing. Okay, so I'll jump back to my theme development training outline. Let's get started on basics now that we have this code to work with, this static design. Okay, so here's the folder with all the static files. I'm going to jump back to my public HTML directory here. And let's take a look at this themes override directory. Now this is in the root of our site. right where we copied that Greek Yogurt 2 theme for for customizing or whatever. So let's take a look at how we might set up a folder for our own custom theme. I'm just going to make a new folder in here. Whoops, wrong keyboard shortcut. And I'm just going to call this Doubtless because that's the name of the theme. Of course, if I wanted to make this a theme folder with more than one word in it, I'd want to put a underscore in between the words and use all lowercase because that is a handle that you want to sort of a format for handles in concrete5 that you want to respect. So I have this new folder called Doubtless and there's nothing in here. This is totally empty. Okay, so I'll go back to my static chop folder here, right here. This is index.html, and I'm going to take this file, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into my theme folder. Now, we typically don't want a file called index.html inside our themes. It's just this is just static. So let's start by actually renaming this to something that's more useful for our theme, since we don't actually use an index file in our themes. Let's see. So we've created the theme folder with appropriate handle. Now we're adding the required files. So we're going to take this code inside index.html. This is the static HTML code. Real simple layout here. And I'll change this, and I'll call this default.php. So I'll change the file extension, and I'll rename this to default. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now let's take another file. And now I know that this probably isn't going to install in concrete5 yet. Let's take a look at how it looks from our themes page in our dashboard, just to show you what we've got right now. So I'll go to themes. Down here, you can see Greek Yogurt 2, and then curiously enough, we have this new theme listed down below that has no name and no description. So all we have right now is this new folder in our themes override directory, and we have a default.php inside. If I try to install this, concrete5 will actually install it because it found default.php. Now this isn't going to work very well yet because it's just static code in there. So you don't need a whole lot of files in here for concrete5 to actually install the theme. Now, I thought that concrete5 had a check in place to make sure that view.php is included in your theme folder when you actually install this stuff, but maybe it doesn't. I guess not. But at any rate, we're going to need a view.php, so that's a good second step. So I'm going to go to my text editor here, and I'm going to make a new blank file called view.php. I'll put this in my public HTML folder, in my custom theme folder, Doubtless right here. So I've got view.php in that folder. So now I've got two files in here. Absolutely nothing in view, and all our default file is .php is just the code from our static design. If I refresh this inspect page, now view.php shows up. So that looks pretty good. And we probably want to give this theme a name at this point because right now it's not really showing up very well on here. It doesn't look very good right here. So let's take this and actually give it a name. And of course, to do that, we're going to need a new file called description.txt. So I'm going to use the first line here to name the theme. This is Doubtless, and my second line is just going to describe the theme that we're working with here. So I'll save this in my theme folder as description.txt. Okay, so now I'll go back to concrete5 or refresh this themes page, and that looks like I've done something wrong here. Got description.txt, and we have that name in there. Yeah, maybe we should remove this theme. We should uninstall it perhaps and reinstall it and see what happens. Because I think these might have been saved. Let's remove the theme. Okay, so concrete5 went and took a look at those files again. We uninstalled that theme that we installed because we didn't have the name and description set up. Concrete5 didn't have that saved. But now it's re-parsed the files inside the theme directory, and it's got that named Doubtless, and we have a new theme for theme development training. So now I can actually install this, and we actually have a name for our theme. So that's probably a good thing. We probably want that. So now, of course, we have view, we have description, we have default. We're still missing that thumbnail. Let's take a look at how this site looks. I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to use my screen grab tool to make a thumbnail of how this theme is eventually going to look. So I'll make it like something like this. And then I'm going to real quick go back into our site. I'm going to go to our file manager and real quickly use a little bit of a cropping tool, a resizing tool, to actually get this this file at the right size here. So what I'm going to do, now of course you don't typically have to do this. You might want to instead use Photoshop or something like that. I'm just doing this kind of quickly for the sake of our theme class here, but and I'm just going to do this a real easy way here to do maybe 120 by 90 is what I want. And it's not going to be a very good thumbnail, but it's something we can use here. So I'll this is sort of a roundabout bad example of how to make a thumbnail here, but let me go and actually get that added to our file here. Yeah, it doesn't look great, but it's something. So I'll call this thumbnail.png, and I'm going to copy it and place it in our theme folder. So I've got this 120 by 90 thumbnail of our theme. It sort of looks like what we're going after. So I don't know. You might probably want to do that with Photoshop or something that's a little more simple to use. If I go into the dashboard and take a look at our themes again, now our theme actually has sort of a preview, a thumbnail here for our theme. But of course, I don't know. I was doing that trying to do a very complicated way of making a thumbnail, just kind of on the spot, so I didn't have to load Photoshop. Probably took more time than I needed to. Anyhow, so we have this theme on our site. Now, we have most of what we need to actually get it to work, but we haven't done anything to the code. All we have right now is static HTML inside default.php. But it is a page type, and that's enough for concrete5 to try to render a page through it. It's just doesn't have any of that code to actually get the content from our areas and stuff like that. So let's actually activate this theme and see what our site looks like. And I expect that things will break when we do this because we don't have any of that code in here. So I'll apply this theme to every page on our site, and let's see what happens when we actually return to our site. Okay, so as you can see, stuff is not working right here. We have a bunch of static text. This is just HTML. Of course, you probably recognize this as the HTML from our static theme here, from this chop. So we want to fix that. Now, of course, now our site is looking like this. It's it's not really working very well. We want to go back into the dashboard. So if you can always get back to the dashboard in concrete5 by going to index.php/dashboard. We're still logged in, so we can just jump right back into it here. So if we wanted to fix our site, you wouldn't want to do something like that on a live site, but on our development server here, it's it's totally fine to break things and play around with stuff and do a little trial and error to get things working right. So we still have that theme applied. Right now, it's just not looking very good. So you can always get back to the dashboard if you mess something up and need to turn on a different theme in order to actually see your site. So let's actually go through that code and turn it into something that concrete5 can actually use. So I'll go back to our site. This is how it looks right now. We'll be adjusting some code in our default.php, and then reloading this page to see how we've affected it. Okay. Okay, so we've integrated the HTML from our chosen design. Cool. All right, now let's actually get some stuff going in here. So I'll bump up the font size a little bit here just to give everyone a little more pixel, a few more pixels to read at home. And let's see what's going on inside this theme. So this is pretty straightforward. It's just some HTML. You know, we have here's our head tag right here. We have a bunch of stuff in our body, a bunch of placeholder content for the Doubtless theme, and then down at the very bottom we have our footer stuff. So let's first of all cut out some stuff that concrete5 is going to manage. Now in concrete5, when on your actual site, when it's actually working and not kind of broken like this one, concrete5 pulls in the page title from your actual page on the sitemap and actually places that in a title tag. So we can get rid of this static header content here, this placeholder for a title. So we'll just cut that out. We're going to add some code here in a minute that actually pulls in the real page title from your concrete5 page. Now, same thing goes for keywords and descriptions. So these two tags are typically used for SEO or search engine results, and concrete5 lets you manage those through page properties. And so you don't have to worry about having these tags in your page type either. So we can cut this out as well. Now I think we want to leave the character set in here too. That's probably fine. And then below that, looks like we have a call to Google Fonts, and then we have a call to a particular style sheet here. This is default.css. So let's get those things that concrete5 needs to pull into your page and actually place in the header loading. So right after the opening of our head tag here, and this is kind of important, this is where you want to put this tag, we're going to make a little room and we're going to add a PHP tag. Okay, take a look ahead and get my notes together here. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up PHP. Just like that. I usually like to close my tags right after I open them. And then we're going to write this particular call to concrete5 to load up certain parts of certain things that concrete5 is going to need in order to make this page work with concrete5. So we're going to say loader element, and then this takes one argument here, and it's going to be header underscore required. We'll end our line here. Now you'll find this at the top of every theme, just right after the head tag opens. So you're going to want to have this tag up here. Let's reload our page. I'm going to put our source up right here. And now you can see that once we have that loader element header required tag here, now if we look at the source in our browser, we've pulled in some concrete5 specific stuff. So here's our head tag. Then we have the stuff for loader element header required right below that. So we have our title, which is training home, which is our name of our training site. We have the meta description, which happens to be the page description attribute in concrete5. Right now I don't have anything saved in there in our actual site, so it's blank, but we're pulling in that tag. And then we have this generator tag here. It says this page was made with concrete5. We also have a little script here that actually sets some variables that concrete5 uses to do stuff. So we've actually used concrete5 to pull in this stuff that we need to get the page loaded. Now below this we see some other stuff as well. I see we have a spacer here to actually push the page down to allow for the editing toolbar to show up. We have a few more scripts down here and style sheets that concrete5 loads. Some of this stuff gets loaded all the time, like jQuery, that concrete5 needs. Some of this stuff only loads when we're logged into our site, which we currently are, like jQuery UI. That only gets loaded when we're logged into our site. We only use that for a few specific things, so we don't load it all the time, only when you're logged in and ready to edit. And then finally, we have a couple of style sheets as well that concrete5 uses. So we have a base.css, we have app.css. Those are used by concrete5 for the editing toolbar and the different block menus and stuff like that you might see. So that's all the stuff that we're loading here. Everything from the top of the head tag on down. Now it looks like we're also loading in this character set here for UTF-8. So we can actually pull out the tag that was included inside our theme here. So we don't need two of those. Reload that. We have one last line down here. Now, of course, our page, reload it, moves down a little bit to make some room for that editing toolbar, but the editing toolbar doesn't load yet. So we need to do one more thing in here to actually get that to show up. So I'm going to take this whole tag for loader element header required, and I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom of my page, or very bottom of my default.php, my page type, and I'm going to make a little room here right before the closing body and HTML tags. So I'm going to paste that line in, and I'll change it to read footer required. So this is going to pull in all the different elements, or all the different assets that concrete5 needs to load up in our footer. So we have some stuff for concrete5 that loads in the header, and some stuff that loads in the footer. So let's go back here and refresh our page now. Now we get the concrete5 editing toolbar. So that's pretty cool. We have those two different things we need to actually insert into our page. Header required right after the opening of the head tag, and footer required right before the closing body and HTML tags. And that's true for any page type. Typically once you start breaking these up into reusable theme elements, you might find these in your header.php or footer.php. But since our theme is being rendered through just this one file right now, they're going to be in our page type. So we'll break this stuff up later. You'll see. Be real easy. Cool. So we have this loaded right here. This looks pretty good, but of course we have no styles being applied to our theme. All we have is this this basic HTML, the static HTML. If I put the page in edit mode, nothing's editable, obviously, because we don't have this content loaded through through blocks or anything like that. It's just static code. So I'll edit out of, or exit out of edit mode here real quick. Let's fix this. First, we'll get the styles loading up and actually reference those style sheets and pull them in, and then we'll start thinking about what we want to do with the content in these areas. Okay, so let's scroll back up to the very top of our default.php, and let's take a look at how the style sheets are referenced right now. Now, it looks like we're pulling in a font from Google Fonts. That's fine. We don't need to change that at all. That's going to stay the same. So this line we can just totally ignore for right now. But we do have this line here, this link tag that pulls in default.css. Now we want to change this to actually go and get that. Right now that's probably a broken reference. It's actually not looking in the right spot for that file. Even though it's in our theme, actually it turns out it's not in our theme folder. It's looking for that file and it's not finding it. So let's put that file in place first of all. It's probably a good first step. If I go to my desktop, go get our Doubtless theme that we downloaded off the website. Let's go and pull everything else in here. We don't want to index HTML. We want everything else though. Copy that stuff. Here's our actual theme we're working with, and I'll paste those files in. I'll be a nice guy. I'll leave the license in. Probably a good idea. I'll get that image that we want to display as a background in there as well. And then the last thing we pasted in right now is default.css, just to pull those last few files over from our static theme. So let me open this up real quick, default.css. Okay, looks like CSS to me. Pretty cool. Let's actually reference this. Now that wasn't enough to actually get this to load. As you can see, it's still broken. Even though we have that link to default.css, it's not going to the right path. I guess if I looked at the source, we could see that here's where it's looking for. Yeah, it's just looking for this at. If you look at the very bottom of my browser window there, it's looking at this at the root of my website / default.css, and that's not going to work. So let's get this actually loading up. Now I'm going to show you two different ways to refer to assets in your theme. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is use a method called getThemePath. Okay, so here's my default.php, and here's my href attribute of the link tag. What I'm going to do in here is I'm going to open up a PHP tag, and I'm going to echo out. So here's PHP. I'm going to echo this, which is the current view context, get theme path, and that's got that camel case going on there to that has to be respected. And there's going to be no argument for this function. So we're going to go to this get theme path, and we're echoing out this value here. So what this does is it actually goes and fetches the path to the current theme that's activated. So in this case, it's going to go get the actual path to our doubtless theme. So this is a dynamic way of referencing the path to the currently activated theme. Let's reload our page and see if that was enough to actually get that style sheet to load. Okay, looks like maybe not quite yet. Okay, this get theme path. Oh, probably need a slash in here. That's probably a good idea. Let's reload the page now. As you can see, now we actually have the theme styles being pulled in, so this looks a lot better. So we have all sorts of styles from our default HTML and CSS design here that we got pulled in. Looks pretty good. So that's the first way to refer to a theme asset, echoing out this theme path to get the dynamic path or the current path to the activated theme. Now there's a second way to actually refer to a style sheet, and this is a method called getStyleSheet. So if we were to just open up a PHP tag down here and do echo this once again, getStyleSheet, and then this takes one argument, and this is going to be the path to your actual style sheet inside the theme folder. So this is a different way of referring to your style sheet, and let me try to explain what the difference is. So when you tell concrete5 to go get your style sheet using getStyleSheet, what it's going to do is it's going to load up this style sheet and parse it. It's going to do some extra processing of this style sheet. Instead of just printing out a link to your theme path and then making a regular old HTML style reference to this is going to go and load up your style sheet, grab it, look for customizable theme elements, those special tags we're going to wrap our colors and stuff like that into in our style sheets to get stuff customizable in the dashboard. So it's going to go look for that stuff, and then it's going to cache the style sheet and take those settings that we've adjusted and put them aside for quicker access. So getStyleSheet, you're going to want to use that if you have customizable theme styles that you've made in your CSS files. If you haven't, then maybe you want to use getThemePath, because getThemePath is slightly less resource intensive since we're not parsing that style sheet for customizable theme styles. We're not caching the style sheet and putting it aside. So if you're loading up something like for instance, the 960 grid or a CSS reset file, you're probably not going to want to parse it for customizable styles because typically that stuff wouldn't be in those files. But if we're loading up typography.css and that has, in a typical theme, it has a bunch of customizable theme styles, then you want to use getStyleSheet to actually pull that in. Now I have this echoing out right here at the top of the page. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just pull this, pull out getThemePath and show you how that actually looks on the page too. So what we're going to see here is the actual two different paths generated by each of these methods printed out at the top of our page. So let me go refresh this page and we should see this. And I'll throw a line break in here too. That'll make it a little easier to read. So as you can see, the very first echo statement we made here, this getThemePath just printed out the path to the current theme/doubtless. The second echo statement here we made actually went and parsed that style sheet from our theme and saved it in the cache as default.css, and then returned this path to it after it had been parsed. So concrete5 essentially went to the theme folder, grabbed that style sheet, looked at it, and said, okay, are there any customizable theme styles in here? Yes, no, yes, no. And finally took that style sheet, made whatever changes to the customizable properties that it found, and stuck it here in the cache for us. So a little more resource intensive. If you're concerned with page loads, and you don't have customizable theme styles, maybe you want to use get theme path. But if you have customizable stuff, you're definitely going to want to use get style sheet instead. So let's actually let's make a new style sheet, and I'm going to put some of our styles eventually in there. So I will go and do that right now. So open up, I have my text editor open already. I'm going to make a new file and just save this as a blank file in our theme called typography.css. Now typography.css is it's a standard name we use. It's one of those things you'll find in a lot of theme files. So you'll probably want to use that if you have your text styles split off like this. You don't necessarily have to call typography.css, but it's a convention that we tend to follow. So I'll save this as a new file here, typography.css, in my theme. And let's go load this up using get style sheet. So I'm jumping back to my default.php this time. I'm going to copy this whole link tag here because we mostly want to use this. Paste that again, and I'll update this. For my href property, I'm going to cut this whole thing out. I'm going to paste in our echo statement that goes and gets that style sheet, the cached, parsed version of it. So I'm going to go back here and actually get that reference, and we're going to change the style sheet that we're specifying to typography.css. So I'll refresh the page now. Those two lines we had printed go away. Let's refresh the source too and take a look at what we're actually pulling in. So here's our first style sheet reference. We're getting default.css via get theme path. And then here's our second CSS reference here. We're getting typography.css from the cache after we parsed it. Cool. So I guess following along this line of thought, let's go put a text style in here that we can update through the what do you call it? The dashboard. So typography.css is totally blank right now. Let's take a look at default.css, and we'll pull in something from this this document. So it looks like right now we have all the A tags, all the anchor tags getting applied a certain color, and that's 706 whatever here. I'm going to go and cut this out. I'm going to cut out this style declaration and put it in typography.css. So here we are. We have all A tags have this link color of this property here. So to make this customizable, what I'll do is I'll do customize link color, and I'll end my CSS comment right there. And I'll copy that tag and I'll paste it right on the other side of this. Now, once I go refresh the page, let's take a look. Let's make sure those link colors are still, looks like that's still that same brown color. Let's go to the dashboard now and take a look at our themes, our list of themes, and let's go to customize and see what we see. Aha! So now that I have that set, you can see I made this style in our style sheet. We've wrapped it with customize link dash color and put that CSS comment on either side of just that property there. And that alone let concrete5 make that link color updatable. So I could choose a different color for these links. And as you can see, that style was actually applied to these particular links on the page. And if I save this and go back to my site, you can see this is already applied. So that's how you create a customizable style sheet property, I guess you might call it. Now remember, the good takeaway from this is that if you're going to do that, you need to parse the style sheet using the get style sheet method. If you call your style sheet with get theme path instead, it's just going to make that, just to make a real basic reference, or HTML reference path to that style sheet, and not actually render the style sheet after it's parsed and cached. So make sure you use get style sheet for that if you're going to use customizable theme styles. Cool. So that's all well and good, but of course our page is still not editable. So we need to think about how we're going to do that. So looking at this page, I see that we have a whole bunch of sample content here. This is probably the primary area where you're going to put stuff as far as your content blocks and whatever. This looks like kind of a 3-column page type or something like that. Maybe I'd call it that if I wanted to, but we're still working with it as default because it's just the one and only page type for this theme right now. So let's take this default content here, this sample stuff, and cut it out. So let's just get rid of that entirely. So let's find where that is in our HTML source. It looks like down here we have here's welcome to Doubtless. This looks like a pretty good place to get started cutting stuff out. And it looks like this is all the content that's inside there. In box number 1, or box 1, that div ID. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a main area for my page. So this is following our concrete5 theme standards. The naming convention for themes follows these rules. If you go to documentation on concrete5.org, go to Developers Index, you can find under the Pages column here, the Pages area, we have theme standards. And if you go here, you can see that we have several standard names for areas: header nav, header, main, and sidebar. Now a good rule of thumb is that every page should follow these sort of conventions. And the reason for that is that, if you switch to a page type which uses some sort of exotic name for its areas, your content that's already on that page, from the original theme, might disappear because it's no longer being referenced in the new page type. So try to follow these conventions when you make new areas for your page. Good rule of thumb. Beyond these names, you can call your areas whatever you want. So when we create these areas, we'll follow these examples. But if you wanted to have more than 4 areas on a page, you could certainly get crazy with the names and call them whatever you like. I've seen themes where the names are in in different languages, and the names are primary 1, 2, and 3, or box 6, or something like that. That's all fine. Just try to at least have these areas included in your page types if possible. A good rule of thumb is to always have a main area, if nothing else, just to have something be editable on your page and have some stuff show up when you switch to that page type. So let's actually get that stuff rolling here. So I had this. I'd found this sample content here. It looks like we have an H2. Then we have a couple divs here, and then we have a div class entry, and then some paragraphs inside here. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out where this content gets real generic. This div has a class with a special class on this div here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out this paragraph text here. I'm going to turn all this stuff, cut out these two paragraphs here. And this is where I'm going to place my first editable area. This seems like the most obvious place for the main area, since it's this big chunk right here that you might want to put your blocks into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another PHP tag in here. So I'm going to open this up, and this is going to usually be written on 2 different lines. The first line, we're going to define a variable. I typically like to use the letter A to do this, so the variable name A. So we do A equals, and then we're going to make a new area object. So A equals new area, and this takes an argument. So we'll put this in single quotes. And this is the name of our area right here, this main area. So I'll do that, and I'll end the line. So we've got a new area object with the name main. Second line of the code, we're going to call a method on this area. So we're going to do a, and we're going to call the display method. Now this is going to take an argument, and this argument is always going to be c, the variable c. So we've made a new area object, and we've set it to that to be stored in the variable a. Then we took that variable a, which is our area object, and ran the display method on it, and we passed in this variable c. Now you might be wondering what c is. C is the collections object in concrete5. So this means that all the data that's available about this particular page we're on, for instance, if it's the home page, it would be all the stuff that we know about home, all the stuff we've stored about the home page, which includes the name, the blocks of content, everything we know about all the page attributes, all the page properties and all that stuff. We're passing that in, and when we call the display method, what we're doing is the display method is going to grab the blocks for the main area out of the collections object and actually display them on the page. So now that we have this code in place, I'll go ahead and refresh my page. And now we're actually pulling in some content from our site. So this is actually the content from our home page when we first installed concrete5 today. So that looks pretty good. If I put the page in edit mode, you'll see that this is highlighted just like it normally would be. We have 2 blocks and then an area down here. So now we've already made an editable page in concrete5. So that's pretty cool. Pretty easy to do. A couple more things I wanted to mention about areas. These can be created on the fly. So if I wanted to make a new area, all I'd have to do is copy this code out again, and I'd change the name of the area. Maybe I'd call this main secondary or something like that. And the reason I do this is that all areas have to have a unique name within this page type. So within this page type, I shouldn't have 2 areas named main. Concrete5 is going to get confused, probably rendered the blocks in both. So yeah, make sure that all your areas within this page type have their own unique names. But I can just keep copying and pasting this code. I could put 3 or 4 different areas in this little div area if I wanted to. If I refresh this page now, you'll see that I have this main area and also main secondary down here, and I can add blocks to this area now too. So it's really easy to do this and actually get new areas added to a page. If you wanted to modify a site later on down the road, for instance, if your client, it's a real common thing to have happen. If your client, has a site built out, and they anticipated that a certain part of the design is static, or is typically static, and then later on down the road decided that they wanted that part of the site to be editable. They want to update the content themselves. All you'd have to do is cut it out and replace it with an area, hit save, and you've got an editable part of your page that you can actually let your client use to update content. So pretty cool, pretty handy as well. Just make sure that your areas all have unique names within the page type. Now you might have noticed that I'm not following the handle convention that we set up with we talked about for page types and for theme names. And you're right. Areas can have capital letters, and they can have spaces in between the words too. You can have multiple words in your area handles. So good thing to keep in mind. It's done that way because these are typically displayed in the front end of your site, and if these were just area handles that were with underscores and all lowercase, it wouldn't look all that polished. So we allowed the naming of areas to happen with this format with capital letters and spaces, and sort of did some processing on the back end to make everything work the way it needed to. Okay, so we've made an editable area, so that looks pretty cool. And let's actually talked about standard area names. That's pretty good. Let's think about the rest of the parts of this page that need to be set up. So we have this. This is still static here. So is all this stuff over here. Let's go and actually get those parts working. So it looks like we have box 2 is this area right here. This chunk of code, this chunk of sample code right here. let's go and change this up and put a new area in here. So I'll copy my editable area code, and I'm going to chop out this stuff for the UL right here. Maybe I'll chop out the H2 as well, just so I have a plain old div in there with a box2 ID. I'm going to clean up this formatting to a degree here. Now I want to change this and make it unique, of course, within this page type. So I'll just call this, maybe I'll call this middle, because this is sort of the middle area here, the middle column. And then I'll do the same down here for this one. Paste in my editable area code. I'll get rid of that H2 as well. And since we're trying to follow concrete5 naming convention for areas, our theme standards, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one sidebar, because it's, I guess it's the most. This is going to be this one. It's over here on the side. But so we have main, secondary. I don't really need that because it doesn't make all that much sense, but it was a good example. But we have main, middle, and sidebar. So if I refresh this, our sample content will go away. But now you can see we've pulled in the area, the blocks that were in the sidebar area on our home page from way back when we had Greek yogurt applied. If I add the page, we had this middle area showing up too. This is a brand new area, so there's no block saved in here yet. But if I wanted to, I could certainly do that. Maybe put a list in there, something like that. That looks pretty decent. Now, of course, we probably want to get rid of this H2 up here at the very top as well, so I'll go clean that out. Looks like it's an H2 with the class of title on it. I might keep that in mind for later on down the road if we want to make some custom templates or something like that as well. So I'll go ahead and hit save and get rid of that last of the static stuff. But this lets us actually put content into these areas and get stuff looking, get stuff looking relatively decent here. Now, looking up at the top of our page, you can see that we have this doubtless word being printed out. This is static still. We probably want this to actually reflect the name of our site. So let me show you a couple different ways to do that. Let's find where this is actually placed in here in our default.php code, and it looks like it's just an H1 in this logo div. So I'll pull this out. I'll replace this with an editable area. So we can do that here too. So once we have this code, we can just use it everywhere. Now we're going to do something a little bit different with this code. What we're going to do is make this a global area. So I'm going to give this a new name in a second here, but this is going to be a global area in concrete5. Two things that are different about global areas. Oops, I hit the wrong button here. Two things that are different about global areas in concrete5 is that, one, the object that we're making here is called global area instead of area. It's in camel case. You can see this here. And then also, when we call the display method on this, we're not going to pass in the collections object. And let me explain why. Global areas actually reference what we call stacks in concrete5. So if I go to the dashboard and take a look at stacks, you can see that we have two global areas that were set up when we installed the sample blog site. So we have header nav and site name. Now, you might wonder, how are these used exactly? Well, these are a way of taking blocks from an area and actually using those same blocks over and over again wherever that area is referenced. So typically when we put an area on a page type in concrete5, when we put that code to create a new area in your page type, it's going to go get the blocks from that particular page's collection object and pull them in and render them in the page. With global areas, what it does is it goes and looks in the dashboard essentially and gets these particular blocks from this predefined stack. So it's going to render the same blocks wherever the global area is going to render the same blocks wherever it's referenced instead of the unique blocks from the collections object. I hope that's not too complicated a description, but essentially this is a great way to recycle blocks in many different places on your site. So if I have a global area called site name, I can click in here in the dashboard, the stacks, and take a look at this and see that what we have here is a content block in our stack. And we can go and call this global area whenever we want to and pull in this content block and get it showing up on the page. So let's go back to stacks here. This one's called site name. Let's make that global area that we're creating in our code here site name. So as you can see, it's different here. We're calling it global area instead of an area. And you can see here that we're not passing in the collections object when we call the display method. So I'm going to go back to my website and let's see what we got. Oh, cool. So it looks like we've pulled in this word training here. And if I put the page in edit mode, you can see this is just like a block here. This is an area called site name. You can see concrete5 appended site-wide to the beginning of this area name because that's something we do to help define this as a global area or help display this as something that's obviously a global area. And inside here we have this block pulled from our stack on the dashboard there. We can add this from the front end too. We can change this if you want to. And if I publish my edits, that's going to show up wherever this global area is present. So if we made another page type in this site, we'd refer to that global area somewhere else and actually pull in that exact same block. If I go to the dashboard, check out stacks here, that's what site name looks like now. So hopefully that sort of explains how you might use global areas. Now, if you don't want to do something so complicated, you can also sort of easily pull in the site name with some different code. So I'm going to comment out that global area right now just to sort of disable it for a moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to echo something else. So we have this sort of global that you can use in your page types or in your themes. Anything that's like a reusable theme element or a page type, you can just echo out this global called site. And what this is going to do is it's going to pull in, you can see it over here, it's not really styled right now, but it's going to pull in the name of our site that we defined when we set up our site, when we ran the installation script this morning. So, we're pulling in this word training here. Of course, if I wanted to do that, I'd probably want to wrap this in, maybe an H1 or something like that. To get it to look a little better, but as you can see, I might pull in the site name that way. Now you might be wondering exactly where this is actually defined right now in concrete5. If you go and use intelligent search to look for site name, you can find that here. It's under system and settings. Now if you're not familiar with concrete5, using intelligent search, this field up here is really awesome, and it actually lets you go and find almost anything you want in the dashboard really quickly. So I couldn't remember where exactly site name was set, so all I got to do is search for it and find it here. So as you can see, this is where our site name is defined. If I wanted to update that, I could just change this to something like that. And we can reference the site title that way too. So if you want to let users update their site titles, maybe you'd want to make a global area with the name site name. Or you could make just a reference to this site constant that actually prints it out from that simple text way of setting your site name in the dashboard. Now a few things I wanted to mention before we wrap up this page type. Looking at, I'm going to jump back up to I guess I'll jump back up to Greek Yogurt 2 here. If I look at one of the page types from this theme, you'll see that whenever we're working with a PHP file in concrete5, you'll see this line here that says defined C5 execute or die access denied. What this does is it checks to make sure that the concrete5 environment is running. So it checks for the existence of this global right here and denies access otherwise. So this is sort of a good security check to keep in place just to make sure that concrete5 is the thing that's actually asking for this particular PHP file and not like a crawler, a web crawler, or spider, or something like that, or maybe someone else that's up to nefarious stuff. But a pretty good simple security check to have, and we recommend that you put this at the top of every single file in your custom code that has PHP extension in it, or at the end. So your page type should have this, your theme element should have this, etc. So let me copy this real quick, and I'm going to go and paste this at the top of our default.php that we've been working with today. So I'll go paste this up here, and since we're jumping back into the HTML right away, I'll close that PHP tag. But if this tag is in place, you'll never really notice it if it's not there. But it's just a good thing to have. So try to keep that in mind if you're making a PHP file like concrete5. Go grab that tag from any of the core files that have it and paste it in at the very top. Okay, so moving right along, kind of wrapping things up here because we're sort of running low on time. I don't mind going over a few minutes if you don't mind sticking around. So I'll finish this up if we can. Otherwise, if you gotta run, I have some documentation and stuff like that that I'll pass along to you too that will cover this course and everything we learned in there, including code samples. And I'll actually I'll paste I'll get a link to the recorded video of this later on in the week as well. Anyhow, just to wrap things up here and sort of move things along, we've made this one page type for our site. There's probably a few other things we could probably do to get this looking a little better. This footer down here is still static. This nav over here is still static. So let's deal with that real quick. I'm going to take this global area that we made here. This is the code for our global area. And we're going to use that to get a nav. I'll pull this out too. Use this global area code and sort of modify it a little bit to pull in a global area we already have set up on our site. If I go to dashboard, take a look at stacks, you'll notice we have this header nav area. If I click in here, we have an auto nav block. So that's what we were using when we had that Greek yogurt theme applied. Let's actually get this working in our new theme too, because we don't want that static nav up at the top of our page. We want the real nav that we were using before. So let's find this static list item, static item list here. It looks like it's right here. Now the auto nav block generates a unordered list of its own. So I imagine that once we actually get this this global area we want referenced and printing out the block inside the right container div here, I'm guessing that's going to look pretty decent actually once we get this rolling. So let's change this and call the global area header nav. Now that's that stack we saw on the dashboard that got set up when we installed concrete5. I'll refresh my page here. Oh, and as you can see, we actually have the pages from our site, not the static ones. So that's pretty cool. Now I know there's one more style we need to look at from the chop, from the default template that we downloaded today, and that sort of gets applied to when you're looking at the page that you're looking at the nav entry for the page you're actually on. I think this is highlighted in some way. We might take a look at that in the advanced theming and custom templates class later on this week. But I think just moving along right now, we'll finish up the rest of this stuff real quick. So let's take a look at the bottom of the page. We probably want to change how this looks a little bit. We don't want sitename.com down there. It looks a little bit silly. So let's go down here to the very bottom of the page, and let's first of all get this a little more acceptable here. We'll do an actual entity for trademark. That's probably a good name. Maybe we want to eventually print out the current year here. I'm not going to bother with that right now, but let's just echo out that site constant down there at the bottom of the page. Oops, to get this looking a little better here. Refresh the page. Copyright 2013 training is pretty rad. Okay, looking good. All right. So that looks relatively decent. We're not pulling any large amount of static content anymore. This is all the stuff from our concrete5 site. So we have the content blocks in here actually making the HTML code. We can edit all this stuff. This is actually a working concrete5 theme. So pretty decent. Now I've worked with this theme a little bit in the past, and I remember that in this area in particular there's a little bit of a kind of a weird thing going on because the div on this theme has a static height set to it. So it looks like this box is getting cut off a little bit with the outline down here, but it mostly works. You can edit this block and all that stuff. Pretty alright. So that's a really basic page type set up in this concrete5 theme that we've installed on our site. Now the one last thing I wanted to do before we wrap this up today is maybe take a look at how you make reusable theme elements in your actual theme. And what I mean by that is taking the code for the header and the footer and cutting it out of your page type, putting it in its own separate files in an elements folder, and then referring to those files using includes in your page types. So similar format to how the default the core themes rather do this, and in most themes that are put together by concrete5 developers do this as well, just to recycle that code and make sure that you never have to change code in your header and footer in multiple different places if you want to update it. So let me show you what I mean. So back in this Greek Yogurt 2 folder that we were looking at earlier, I mentioned we had this elements folder that had header and footer in here, and these were essentially responsible for displaying all the code at the top of your page if it's the header. You have the HTML tag there and everything down below, and of course the bottom of the page if it's the footer. Now you might wonder, okay, what's different between each page type? Of course it's going to be all the stuff in the middle. So default.php here is going to actually render the areas that are in the middle of the page essentially, and call the header and the footer at the top and the bottom. So let's do that for our theme too. First thing we want to do is probably figure out where exactly we're going to need to cut, I guess. So looking at this, I can say, okay, what do I want to display on every single page type in our site? So we've got our global area up here, global area down here for our header nav, and then below that we have the content that's unique to the page, which is all this stuff here, our sidebar and our two columns of content over here, the middle and main. And then after that, down here is the footer. We can recycle that content. It's not going to be different on every single page. It's going to be the same stuff all the time. So what we want to do is just pull out the stuff that surrounds that unique content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything here at the very top of default.php on down past wherever we think looks good. So here's our header nav, that second global area. And it looks like this is where our actual unique page content starts. Here's box 1, here's the main area, the middle, all that stuff. So I'm going to take everything above that and cut it out. And I'm going to make a new file, paste that in, and save it in our doubtless folder, in a new folder called elements. I'm going to call this header.php. Back in default.php, I'm going to do the same thing. Looks like we don't have very much code in here at all, actually, now. I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom of the page. Now, this is pretty well delineated here. Here's a div called footer. So I'm just going to grab this, cut it out, hit save, and I'm going to make a new file, paste it in, called footer.php. And these files are going to be in that elements folder, like I mentioned. Now, there's not a whole lot in our default.php anymore. All we have is that container div and a bunch of areas inside here. So pretty simple stuff when you get down to what's actually inside a page type. A lot of the magic happens in the header and the footer. So let me go back into the header. I'm going to grab this execute or die line again, and we're going to paste this into default.php right up at the top. Just a matter of best practices here for PHP files that we're rendering in concrete5. And I'll do the same for the footer.php too. I'm going to paste that line in right at the very top, just to make sure that nothing else besides concrete5 is asking for this file. So here's footer.php, we have header.php as well, and then the very middle of our page is rendering through default.php. Now, of course, if we were just to go back to concrete5 and refresh the page right now, we're going to have something that's broken. Because all concrete5 is doing right now is pulling in and rendering this code. It's not grabbing the header and the footer. What we're missing are includes. So let's go take a look and see how this Greek yogurt theme is actually doing those includes. We'll take a look at custom.php, which is that file we copied from full or something like that. So I'll open this up, and this should have not very much code in here, just like we expect. But here are the lines of code we're interested in. These are PHP includes, and we're doing this in the concrete5 accepted way. So you might be tempted to use regular old PHP includes in here. We much rather prefer you use the include method in the view context here, is what we're doing when we call this include, this part right here, and then this argument here specifies what file we want to include. So in this case, it's going to be elements/header.php. So we'll take this this whole line here. This looks pretty good, and we're going to integrate this into our default.php from our theme. So here we have this PHP tag for the access check, and I'll just kind of extend this here one more line, and I'll paste this in. So now we're going to pull in header.php. Now, of course, we need to go and pull in the footer as well. So when we're done with all our code for the page type in the middle of our page, we'll go and open up PHP again. And paste in that same line of code, but change this to read footer.php. And now, once I've done that, I refresh my page and everything looks the way it did before. So this is our finished page type, essentially. This is our default.php. Looks pretty good. Now, a few more things I wanted to do before I actually get too far along here and wrap things up. You might ask, what's the advantage of having these reusable theme elements? It might be pretty obvious to you, but in case you haven't, in case it hasn't dawned on you yet, what you can do now is actually take this default.php and use it as a very good starting point for other page types. Because this is pulling in the header and the footer, and this has all the stuff that you might need. You could take this and start playing around with the divs in here and make a different sort of layout. For instance, if you wanted to make a wide page type, you might take the same code in here and save it as full.php. Not in the elements folder, but rather in the root of your theme where your page types are located. Save this as full.php, and then you could adjust the divs inside here to give a more wide column, for instance. Maybe I'd cut out these two other areas here and only have a main area. And this will be our full.php. So here's our default.php rendering our home page. If I change the page type to full, now concrete5 will find that template inside of our theme, that page type, and render the page content inside this one. As you can see, we don't have those two areas I just cut out inside there. Maybe what you want to do with a full page type is have a very wide footprint for this page, and that's usually a good idea to have in your theme, because you want to include this, because a lot of times with concrete5 you'll get folks who want to use something with a very wide footprint, like an image gallery or something like that, or maybe a discussion forum, and so you're going to want to have a lot of space for them to use in one of their page types. So keep that in mind. That's a good example. Maybe you'd look at this and say, okay, what is exactly causing my box 1 to be especially wide, and then you'd go take a look at default.css and adjust that. So I can see on line 221 we have the styles for box 1. Maybe I'll just take that, copy it, and say, okay, call this box wide. Do something like that, and then in my default.php, or rather my full.php, pardon me, I changed this div ID to box wide, and now I have a much wider column of a much wider area to work with. So that'd make a full.php page type for my theme. And then, of course, that pulls in all the good stuff from our header. It has our global areas that we're referencing up here. So, I can update this. I can update this code from these blocks in here from the front end of our site, or I can go to the dashboard, and it still pulls in our footer and all that good stuff as well. So once you have that in place, you can easily make other page types just by using your default.php as a good starting point for that. So now our theme actually has two different page types. If I go back here and take a look at that, we have full and we have default. And before I wrap this up today, I wanted to mention that you always have to have a view.php inside your theme too. We haven't gotten there, but now that we have this working default.php file, this is probably a good starting point for the view as well. So we have all this all this code in here. We have it pulling in the header and the footer. We're going to need that for our view.php. And actually, now that I think about it, maybe our full.php is a good example for running the for creating the view.php actually. So I'll save this one as view.php, and we'll just override the blank one we had in there before. Replace this. So you might wonder how view.php actually works. In order to do that, I'm going to make a single page just real quick in here in concrete5. Single page runs custom code that you might create on your site. I'm just going to save this as maybe an example of what that code might be. So I'll go back up to our public.html directory, go to single pages. And this isn't part of your theme. This is just sort of an example to help get our view.php working and show you how it works. So bear with just a moment here, and I'll come back to our theme. So we're making a new single page in here. This is our custom code that's going to run. It's just some plain text. So real simple stuff. It's located in the single pages override directory of our site as test.php. Now that we have that, we can go and register a new single page on our site, which is one of those pages we use to render custom code. Now this one's going to be located at the root of our site /test. So I'll hit add here. concrete5 will find that page and register it. So this is right now, this is our test page. As you can see, nothing's rendering. Now the reason that nothing's rendering right now is because our view.php has everything it needs to actually get the page to look relatively good. It's got the header, it's got the footer, it's loading up the concrete5 editing toolbar and all that good stuff. It actually has an editable area called main, but it's not printing out our custom code from test. So what I've got to do in view.php is put this special PHP tag in here. And what it's going to do, and you only find this in view.php, what it's going to do is it's going to print out that content. So we're going to ask PHP to print out a variable called inner content. And that's it. Refresh the page. Now our custom code that was defined in our single page actually shows up here, and you might think, what would I use a single page for? Maybe a custom form that saves customer data from a survey or something like that in your database, that something you've coded up specifically for a site as a one-off solution to handle a task. And of course single pages are very flexible and you can do all kinds of stuff with them, but that's a good example of kind of wrap your head around why you might need to include this view.php with that special tag to print inner content. Now I've got all this written up in my documentation for this class, so I'll be sending it out to everyone after the fact. If you've registered for the class on everyone who's registered for the class through GoToMeeting prior to today will get a copy of all those materials. So you should be all set if you need examples of code or whatever. And I'll include the theme that we built today as well. This Doubtless theme as well. All right, cool. Looks like I've got a few questions here. I know I've been kind of slacking in that department. Let's see what I can answer here. Okay. Got one. Will this be uploaded on YouTube for reviewing? Yes, it will. I'll include the link to that when I send out the documentation for the course. And that's for VPN. Got a question from Helena. They ask, is there a possibility to have only one content type inside a block for adding content, so the client will not accidentally add an image inside a text block in a theme? I would set this up with that. In that case, what you'd want to do, it wouldn't actually involve theming in concrete5. It would probably involve advanced permissions. So we have a permission system in concrete5. If I go back to the root of my site, search for advanced permissions, I can enable this, and this will give me more granular control over what I can turn off essentially for users on my particular site. But it's not something you would typically do in a theme or a page type. If I add this page, I can select an area in here now, and I can set permissions on this area. So I'm going to manually override this, and I'll be able to take a look at what kinds of blocks can be added to the area here on the Details tab. So if I set this to custom, now I can select only certain blocks that can be added here. So if I only wanted to allow a content block, I could turn that on here. Of course, right on working with this administrators group, which you wouldn't want to essentially do. You'd want to set up a custom group prior to this and then set advanced permissions on that. But you can turn off the ability to add certain blocks to certain areas by managing area permissions through advanced permissions. So that can be a pretty lengthy topic as well. I can definitely talk for a couple hours about that, but that might give you a good starting point to find out how to do that. Okay. Will the webinar be able to be downloaded? It'll be available on YouTube. I'm not sure we're going to allow a or not sure we're going to set up any sort of downloading for it, but it will be on YouTube for a while. Should answer most of these questions. It looks like some folks missed the first 20 or 30 minutes, and this will be available on YouTube very soon, so don't worry too much about that. Question about the dashboard. Is it possible to customize the dashboard to use patterns instead of colors? I think this is referring to some of the dashboard options we have in system and settings. And I forget exactly where where this actually is, since it's kind of weird. Oh, probably this is probably more like gosh, I'm on the wrong path here. Thinking about themes and using patterns instead of colors for the actual customizable theme stuff in here. Yeah, I mean, patterns you typically do, you might do an image or something like that, and then maybe you do something more in here to sort of switch it out, I guess. I don't know if there's really an image selector in here. I have to take a look at that and figure it out. Don't see that too often. I know some folks have built custom dashboard pages that install alongside their theme packages that actually allow you to do stuff like specify different background images on your theme and actually control that. So you'd end up with a separate dashboard page that would show up along in here or something like that that would actually let you control what background image the theme uses, or maybe an overall sort of theme to the colors that are selected. Like you'd have a red version of the theme or a blue version of the theme or something like that too. So you could change that out on the fly. I could also think about maybe ways of doing that with page attributes as well, to specify a background image attribute and then use that to actually get the file from the theme. A few different ways to approach the problem. I'm not really totally sure how you would want to do that. One from Andre, probably using get style sheet will break relative path to images, right? Yeah, you don't want to use get style sheet for images. One thing we didn't actually get around to talking about today was that if you want to reference the theme asset, anything in your folder here, for instance, we have this bg01.ping that came with our theme. I'm going to grab the name of this right here. If you want to actually print this out somewhere in your theme, I don't know if it'll look all that great, but if I was in default.php here and I wanted to actually reference this as a static thing, I'd want to do PHP, and then we're going to echo out this get theme path to actually get the path to that image, or actually rather to get the path to the actual theme folder, and then slash whatever.png. So I'd put this in an image tag like this in the src attribute here, and you probably wouldn't want this inside this. Make sure your PHP tags are closing and opening correctly, and let's see if this actually will work. If I go back to my site, let's change this over to default.php, which is what we're, something in default.php, something that'll render through default.php. Looks like I have a broken reference to my image here, but this is essentially trying to get that. Oh, looks like I forgot the parentheses at the end of get theme path. Start doing this off the cuff here. And so now we're at theme / dot list, and then we need the actual path of the image. I think I put this in an images folder, so let's fix that path. And once we have that correct, now this we have this big background image being printed out here. But that's essentially how you'd go and get that element, you know. And you could use this get theme path here to print out the path and reference scripts and stuff like that if you want to load some custom JavaScript in the header of your theme. For instance, if you always needed jQuery UI from your theme folder, from like a JS directory or something like that, you'd use get theme path to print out the path to the relative theme directory, and then you'd have a reference to your script at the end in your script tag instead. Okay, wow, a lot of questions here. I wasn't paying attention. Okay. One from Samir. Which CSS files are required to be in the root folder of the theme, and which can be inside another subfolder? You can, typically, there's not really a hard and fast rule about this, but you can put, I have this default.css here in the root of my theme. If I wanted to, I could go and throw that inside a CSS directory as well, and I could just, update my references to it. So if I put default.css in here, I could do that. I could throw typography.css inside here too. Now typically we keep the typography.css out here in the root of our theme folder, but I have noticed that you can do this way too. You can put it inside a subfolder as well. So you just have to make sure that you specify this correctly. So in this case, CSS / typography and CSS / default, something like that. And I think that should work. Yeah, so those are still valid references. If you look at the source here, reload our source, you can see that what this is doing is it's caching that whole path to it, dealt with /CSS / typography, and this is our static relative path to CSS / default.css. So you just have to watch your references here and make sure you update these to actually work. Notice there's no slash at the beginning of our reference from get style sheet. Okay, I got one from Tomas. Quick question about areas. Can I make some PHP checks if there is something published in this area? For example, some kind of block. If I define an area but there's nothing there, concrete will still render empty divs in the source. All the HTML that your block creates is going to be contained within your block. So you have this code on your page where these are paragraphs and HTML in here. Now, I think what the question is if there is nothing in this area here. So, for instance, if I were to delete all the blocks in this area, would I still have the containing divs around this? And the answer is yes, I would, because these are defined in default.php around our area. So what I'm talking about is, this code's not going, if there's nothing in here, if there are no blocks in here, nothing is going to get rendered on the page when you're out of edit mode. But this stuff that's immediately surrounding it will. There is a way to check if the total number of blocks in an area is greater than 0. You can do that. If you search around concrete5.org, you should be able to find that code. I'm not sure exactly what that code is today. I don't have that in my notes, but you can actually check to see whether or not the number of blocks in an area is 0. Now, one good thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to check for the number of blocks, see if the number of blocks is 0 in a manner that doesn't allow you to add blocks to it in edit mode. So you're going to want to say, if you're not in edit mode, and you can check the collection object for edit mode. If C is edit mode, then, and also if the number of blocks in the area is 0, then do something like don't show the div or something like that. But that's a little bit complicated, probably more than what we can talk about here in depth. I'd have to look up some tags and code and stuff. Rafal asks, Is there a way to make other things editable besides the CSS colors, like font size or font type? Yeah, if you take a look at that theme, if you go into plain yogurt here, this is the sort of the default fallback theme for concrete5, and hit customize. It looks like we have this special tag right here that allows you to do some pretty cool font stuff with I guess default font styles. As far as Google Fonts, there's probably a few add-ons in the marketplace that allow you to easily add those to a site. And I know some themes have approached that by making a custom dashboard page and letting you select stuff through there too. But I take a look around a little more at how that plain yogurt's typography.css works. If I go back into the core here and take a look at default, that theme in the core, and look at typography.css, this might shed some light on here. It might not, actually. Yeah, I'm not totally sure. With as far as integrating Google Fonts, that might be something you want to think about from an add-on perspective, or maybe get a little deeper into theme development, but not really covering the basic stuff here. I'd have to look up some code and stuff like that. Question from Ivor. Why get style sheet for typography.css and why get theme path for default.css? Well, in our theme we have this customizable style here in typography.css, and in order to get that to show up in our dashboard and this customized theme page, if I go to Doubtless here, this is the theme we worked on today. And well, it looks like this is turned off right now. We must have changed something. In order to make this customizable, you have to parse the style sheet through get style sheet. This might, that's actually, one of these questions I had a moment ago was talking about how to actually get this stuff to work with subfolders. It might be that you actually have to have typography.css in the root of your theme. I think that might actually be the case, because I just went and looked at customize here for our theme, and all of a sudden that style step isn't working anymore. So I think you have to have typography.css in the root of your theme. I might have misspoken about that. Let me go back here to my elements folder and fix this real quick. Change it back, at least for our custom theme. And let's see, not this theme, rather our custom one. Something like that. And oh, maybe it's just that we have this path broken right now, but let's see. Nothing like a little trial and error in the middle of a training. But these things are interesting to find if if you think about doing something a different way and having your theme be organized a little bit differently than normal, you might run into some stuff sort of like this. So yes, you do have to have typography.css at the root of your theme. And I think that's actually noted in my notes for this class. It just, the get style sheet will actually find, it's possible for it to find your file inside this folder, but it looks like there's some sort of issue with parsing it that means that you have to have typography.css up here in the root of your theme folder. Is there a way we can, is there an API we can search concrete5 for constants we can use in our code? Yeah, take a look here. If you go to the developers index here, I know this is maybe not quite what you're looking for, but we have this developer documentation here. And if you look at complete API reference at the very end of this, we have this in the system column here. We have this link to the API. It is admittedly not great right now. I know we're working on something better in here, but if you wanted to take a look around inside the API, you can find that here. I'll paste a link to the chat. Question from Rafal: is there a way to create something similar to shortcodes in WordPress? For example, if a customer wants to put a Q&A section using accordion custom style in some place. I know there's some add-ons in the marketplace that try to approach the concept of shortcodes, but in Concrete5 we try to tackle everything like a block typically. So instead of using shortcodes, you make an area and put a maybe a quality control block, accordion block on a page somewhere. It's typically how I'd approach that. I don't know about the advantage, the particular case with shortcodes, how they'd really be utilized, but I know there's some add-ons that sort of approach that. If you want to take a look at our marketplace, there might be some stuff in there that might be of interest to you. I think I might be totally off base here, but I think there's one called Magic Data that gets real complicated with shortcodes. I haven't used this myself, so I don't know if I can really recommend this. I know it's one of the more complicated add-ons that I've seen recently, but I think that essentially tackles sort of the shortcodes challenge. Let's see. Yeah, one from Dakar, can I make a JS variable editable in the admin? Probably not from in the context of this theme class. I really have no clue how to approach that with the resources I have here today in front of me. But it's a good question. I'd take a look at the forums and ask in there if you've not had a chance to browse the Concrete5 community forums. We have a lot of great people in here that help out other people with questions and answers and stuff. Building with Concrete5 is a good one to check out. If you look over here in this filter by forum list, you can go and check out different forums. The theming one might be a good one to take a look at today. Different folks helping each other out with themes and theme challenges. Pretty cool. Anyway, I think that's all the questions. If I missed yours, feel free to email me. It's matt@concretecms.com, and I'll try to give you an answer. Be a little busy this week, but I'll get around to it eventually. Anyhow, I'll have this webinar up on YouTube probably within the next couple of days, and I'll send an email out to everyone who registered for the class and send along the link to YouTube, which will be a unlisted video, so only folks who were here were able to essentially look at it. And then, the theme files that we looked at today in terms of the theme we actually built or started building, and I have a reference sheet too with some code examples as well. So I'll get that stuff off to you within the next couple of days. And it was a real pleasure training everyone. A very big class today. I appreciate your patience while I was getting stuff set up and trying to think on my feet here. But great questions, everyone. I appreciate everyone who posted, and I appreciate your patience in me answering them too. All right, everyone. It was a real pleasure. We have a advanced theme custom template class coming up on Friday. If you look at your email that you used to register for this class, I think I sent one to everyone. There's a link to that in there as well. Take a look at what that might be. I think it's around somewhere, but I'll send it along with the rest of the stuff as well. But if you want to join me for that class, again, it's a special deal. It's $45 to take that class on Friday at noon Pacific time. Same sort of format. I talk a lot and occasionally code something. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone. It's really been fun, and I appreciate all your patience, and I look forward to training everyone here again. All right. Take care.